Hi there, good morning. I'm Dave Campbell. I'm the M365 consultant here at CompanyNet. Very much long in the tooth when it comes to Microsoft technologies and clouds technologies. So today we're going to talk a lot about security, but more demonstratable security. So all about the tools that we can utilize to kind of help you kind of get in control of your concerns across the landscape. Got with me today Stuart Tomlinson, who is my colleague. He will be talking about some of the elements we can look at with Azure later today. So I'll let Stuart introduce himself.
Thanks, Dave. So Stuart Tomlinson, as Dave says, I work alongside Dave on the Microsoft stack, but my sort of speciality is within Azure, where I've been working in it pretty extensively since 2016. I'll be looking at some of the ways that 365 security matches with Azure security.
Thank you very much, Stu. So what we'll do today is we'll go through the agenda where we'll give you an idea of what we're going to be talking about today. So let's jump into the slides and we'll go through that just now. So first and foremost, I'm going to give, I don't know if anyone was able to attend last month's session, but if you haven't, then I definitely encourage you to have a look. All about the zero trust model, all about how that's a roadmap, how that is our goal to achieve. How it's made up and things like that. So we're going to just have a brief summary again of the Microsoft 365 security strategy, zero trust model, and good, better, best as well as part of that. Then we're going to jump into the live demonstrations, which we should get going, within the next kind of 5-10 minutes. Going to talk about hunting across Microsoft 365, analytics and simulation. Before we'll then step into Defender for Cloud Apps, but more specifically, general overview of Defender for Cloud Apps, but more specifically, how we can use Defender for Cloud Apps to apply session controls within Windows 10 as well. So some really kind of good stuff to kind of talk about there. And then I'll hand over to Stu. So it's all about M365. We're passionate about it. But there's some really powerful tools within Azure, because most organizations now, if they have a footprint in M365, they're already thinking, already have thought about extending into Azure. So how can we, move these controls, same model across both M365 and Azure? So we'll talk about that near to the end of today's session. So let's do it. Let's step through. And as Taras mentioned, please ask questions. That's what this is all about. We're here to help you. And I'm sure after today's session, we're keen to speak to you to see how we can kind of augment your already existing security models and teams. So absolutely. So Microsoft 365 security strategy. Now, hopefully, most people are aware of the zero trust model. If you're not, then just a few kind of points about it. So the model is all about assuming breach and verifying each request as though it originates from an open network. So what we're pretty much saying by that is, or what Microsoft is saying by that is that we are proactively applying our security rather than reactively applying our security. So we're implementing things like Privileged Identity Manager to manage and mitigate lateral movement. We're instigating things like, full kind of policy and controls over how our data is accessed. But we're doing that out the gate. Yeah, we're doing that from day one. So we're thinking about how potentially we could be attacked from the internet, one of our attack vectors. Our identity, our devices, how they can be attacked as well. So it's all about making sure that we have the policies, the configuration in place to mitigate that from the get-go. Yeah. Never trust, always verify. So verifying every access to our organization, whether that's via identities, via sharing links, via devices, controlling the devices that access it. Lots of kind of ways that we can do that. But very important, I think a lot of organizations are getting on board with this really well. So it's just about bringing that and evolving that in the model so that we're able to kind of build that fuller kind of security landscape picture. Authenticate, authorize and encrypt every request. So we talk a lot about encryption as part of the conversations that we have with our customers. Talk about how Microsoft handles the encryption, but then how we can handle encryption as well as kind of consumers of the Microsoft services. You know, whether that be email encryption, data loss prevention encryption, or encryption as part of our kind of classifications and our sensitivity. So lots of kind of good ways that we can do that, but it makes up a wider kind of message of the model. Minimize lateral movement, key one. So, you know, users or attackers or users are being attacked by attackers, and, you know, standard users can be attacked, and then you have that lateral movement, so someone can move laterally across to an admin permission or someone who has an admin role, and they're able to kind of to use that to kind of cause some real damage within the organization. So many people fall foul of this, you know, ransomware attacks and kind of various other kind of mechanisms. But it's all about implementing the solutions that allow you to protect that. So, you know, IAM solutions, things that make up that are, you know, privileged identity management and PAM, so PAM and PIM. So great kind of tools there that we can use as part of that model to get us to where we need to be. And then rich intelligence and analytics across the board as well. So being aware, understanding, knowing about the attacks that are happening. And I'll talk about and I'll show you, in fact, hunting and how you can use hunting to really kind of delve into and build custom kind of policies that help us really harden and protect our estate. So this is the Zero Trust model. This is one of the images that I normally share. You can see here on the left-hand side, we have all the entry points, so identity and endpoint. You know, so generally, you know, who or what is being used to access the organization. In the middle, it's all the policy, all the configuration, all the network elements. And then over on the right-hand side, we have our data, our apps, and our infrastructure. So it's all about understanding that model or that kind of end-to-end kind of architectural view of things. And it's all about implementing things like, you know, MFA and, you know, PIM and PAM and all these really good tools that allow you to protect every aspect as we go from left to right here. Or from like right to left, whatever way you wish to go. And we'll talk about how the Zero Trust model is a roadmap. Yeah, you know, it's not about getting to that point from day one. Yeah, it's all about getting to that or working towards that. So you're not going to have everything enabled or everything protected from day one, but as long as you have a roadmap to achieve that, then that's really key with this. Yeah. So I mentioned there that Zero Trust model is an architectural foundation, but let's talk tactics and how we can use Tenant tools to build better security practice whilst retaining full visibility. And that's where our demonstration hits today. So we're talking hunting, talking analytics and campaigns, talking attack simulation, Defender for cloud apps, and then conditional access control, and then Defender for cloud as well, which Stuart will be talking about at the end of today's session. So what we'll do is we'll step into the demonstration. We'll start talking about these things. You know, just to kind of hit home as well, it's you know, the roadmap for the Zero Trust model is as long or as slow as you need it to take, because there's a lot of change involved in that. Yep. So you're not going to get to that point from kind of day one, as I'll keep battering home throughout today's session, but it's all about planning for that, you know, and it doesn't have to be Microsoft technologies or E3 or E5 functionality we implement. Loads of other solutions out there. It's all about planning and finding the right thing for you, or the right tool or service that's going to give you what you need. Cool, so let's step into the demonstration. So first and foremost, you'll see here that I'm in the Microsoft 365 Defender Center, my dev tenant. And what I want to do is just show you a few things that are really handy tools in here. And one of the first things there is the hunting mechanism. So if I jump into hunting there, you'll see I've got two kind of further options, which are advanced hunting and custom detection rules. But they both play or integrate pretty smoothly together. So if I jump into advanced hunting here, you'll see that it's all query based. I can build a query, which then I can use that query to build a custom detection rule. You know, so if we're aware of an area of the business that we're concerned about, there's a new product or application that's coming in, you know, we can use a query as part of this to kind of give us more visibility of what's happening across that element. I mean, don't get me wrong, M365 gives you all of this with the audit logs and, you know, sign-in logs and various other things from how people are accessing it. But this really allows you to build policies about the elements themselves. So you'll see here it's based on schema. And, you know, we have lots of different schema elements here that we can use as the basis for our query. And you'll see here, you know, some of the examples that we've got on the right hand side, you know, where we're, you know, applying a timestamp to kind of look back 7 days. We're also, you know, setting an action type. We're, you know, setting a registry value and seeing if that's changed and things like that. So lots of kind of really powerful things there. And, you know, we can delve into email, apps, devices, so we can, you know, base this kind of custom detection rule on device specifics. So what IP address that device is using, where that device is located, what version of Windows that device is using. So it's all about kind of building a kind of custom rule to really detect really kind of scary stuff from happening within the organization. If the zero trust model is fully deployed and we're, you know, already thinking about the perimeter, you know, or the extended perimeter, if it's a hybrid estate, then we've already got a lot of perimeter security in there. Yeah, but this gives us a more of a targeted look across our entities, across our identities, across our elements of M365. So we can also build or use some kind of community queries that are already built here. So, you know, you'll see that this one here is a kind of query that's built from a community or from the community, but it's very much built depending on a particular action that you want to achieve. So you'll see here that, you know, we've got lots of different ones that we can access here. You know, anything from credential access, so more specifically about the user and about, you know, credential kind of scraping and all that kind of good stuff that we need to keep an eye on. So we can build a query based on that. And there's cheat sheets all about how we can build the queries themselves. And you'll see it follows the same methodology as when it comes to Power Apps, when it comes to Excel to a certain degree. Dynamic groups, you know, all of this is very similar to the way that it's structured. So it's quite easy to get to grips with because it's very much low code. Yeah. So definitely a great thing. And then from the queries that we build, we can build custom detection rules that will fire depending on what it finds or if it meets our query and things like that. So a good way of giving more directed and targeted kind of hunting aspect. So fantastic tool. Definitely recommend you use it. We use it with a lot of customers. So definitely reach out if you think it can benefit you. But maybe you need more information about how to build the queries that you need, or maybe you've got a particular scenario that you need some assistance with. Absolutely reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Excellent. So let's step into threat analytics. This is one of the really good things about M365 is it's a service, and it's not just you that's part of this service. It's many customers that are tapped into the Microsoft 365 service. So what threat analytics does is Microsoft threat experts are, you know, monitoring and they're getting feedback. They're, you know, actively responding across the service. So anything that's coming in, so any malware attacks, any phishing attacks, any you know, spear phishing attempts, malware, all that kind of really good stuff, or any vulnerabilities that have been discovered across the platform, they're shared here. So you can see what's currently out there and what the recommendations are to fix that for your organization. It'll also give you a nice kind of view there, as you can see, whether this is currently affecting your estate. You'll see here my dev tenant is crystal clear, which is fantastic. But it could be that you come in here and you've got things that you need to mitigate or remediate. So really important that, you know, we know that this tool exists, but we're also using it to start thinking about evolving our security and actioning and proactively monitoring our security. It's all about fitting into this zero trust model, which is really good. I mean, it's also important to note that the zero trust model as well. You know, it's not E5 is everything. Yeah, it's all about the good, better, best that a lot of security firms and Microsoft themselves shout about. So it's all about understanding where good, better, and best works for the zero trust model. A lot of that lives within M365E3, and a lot of the advanced functionality lives in M365E5. But you'll find that most of the better configuration can be E3 or a variation of. Yeah, so it's easier to get to I suppose you know, applying the zero trust model, but without having to purchase the really expensive licensing. Don't get me wrong, I love E5. It's great, gives you all this great tools, but it's just not affordable for a lot of organizations. So it's all about understanding what you can do with the licenses that you currently have, and that's one of our specialities. Excellent. So great thing there. What tends to happen is if there's any campaigns out there as well, what they'll tend to do for phishing and malware, what they'll tend to do is create a campaign in the campaign view. So you'll be able to see any ongoing or existing campaigns that are out there currently. For the last time I checked this, there was none, but yeah, it's all about using this this tool when it's available to you to see if there's any attacks out there. Excellent. So the next thing I want to show you is the attack simulator. Now, it's a really underused tool, but it's really powerful, and it's evolved so much from when it was first introduced to the Defender Center, or back then it was the Security Center. And it's evolved in ways that are really, really ingenious. So, you know, it's not like me to really sing the praises of Microsoft here, but I mean, they've done a fantastic job with the attack simulation. So let me jump into it and I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's jump down to our attack simulation. You'll see here, I mean, if you've been in this when it was first brought into the Tenant or into the Microsoft ecosystem, then you'll notice that it's changed a lot. Yeah, so we've got a lot more within our dashboard here. So you'll see here that, you know, we can have a look from a glance here about any attacks that are currently out there. We can see, we can launch a simulation, we can launch a simulation for targeted users. We can see how much training has been completed, and that's a really good feature which I'll talk about shortly. And then, you know, it's all about bringing the number down to in the top right there, where it's got behavioural impact on compromised states. So it's all about making sure that you have 0% of your organisation susceptible to kind of phishing. Yeah, so it's all about bringing that kind of attack kind of space down, and educating your organisation to understand when to recognise a phishing attack. And that's one of the key things of the tool itself. It's all about, you know, fostering education within the organisation, but not making that a resource heavy project. So it's all about introducing tools that are really going to automate and kind of make that easier for you. So you've got your simulations tab across here where it can show you any simulations that you created. My dev tenant only has me in it, so it's not really a valid. I'm pretty sure I'm aware of how to tell what's a phishing attack, what's spear phishing, and all that kind of good stuff. Well, I certainly hope so. But generally, bigger organisations, you know, it's worthwhile running this tool to ascertain where you are from an education purpose. And you don't need to apply education as part of that, but, you know, we'll touch on that in a second. You can also include payloads in that as well. So, you know, you can launch simulations with, you know, payloads like, you know, pretend malware or files or documents and lots of kind of good stuff like that. You can create some automation as well there. So, you know, flow specific actions depending on, you know, the simulation type or the simulation configuration. Really kind of good stuff we can do with that. And then we've just got some kind of other kind of configurations that we can do there. But what I really want to show you is building an attack simulation. So let's launch a simulation. You'll see here we've got standard Microsoft Wizard or Cloud Wizard. Lots of kind of good things that we can do here as part of our testing here. So things like credential harvest. So that's, you know, phishing, spear phishing, that kind of thing, where we're asking people to input their details and then we're capturing that information as part of that attack. Yeah. So credential harvesting is the most common out there alongside malware. But as you can see, the next one down there is we can launch a malware attack as well. And from this, we're trying to gauge if anyone opens the link in the email, first and foremost. If they do open the link, are they putting in their credentials? If they put in the credentials, then it's a big red mark against their name. You know, if they did, then how do we educate people around that? And I'll talk about that when we get to the assigned training. And the malware, it's all about, did someone open the attachment even though they didn't recognize who the sender was, or you know what the attachment was, and how do we educate those people? Yeah. You know, links and attachments and links to malware and drive-by URLs as well. There are other kind of things that we can do as part of the attack simulation. But let's jump into credential harvest, because I think that's quite a good one to have a look at. So I'm just going to give this a demonstration name. And we'll go next. And you'll see we've got some templates that we can utilize here for our payload. So, you know, standard stuff, some made up stuff, some stuff that people might actually recognize, like where are the Office 365 incoming messages from Office 365. If you highlight that, we can have a look at what it looks like. So it's going to, hello, it's going to have their email address in there. You have 3 incoming messages as of yesterday. Click to read message, and obviously if they click on that, they're going to get taken to a page where it's going to ask for their credentials. So again, you know, you can customize these, you can build your own payloads as well to make it a bit more aligned to your own branding. If it's something you want to test internally, you know, an internal email that goes out from the organization. The key thing here is making it slightly different, yeah, or making it a URL that isn't recognizable within the organization. So it's all trying to understand what is a different URL for your end users. So great kind of way of kind of using pre-built templates, but you can totally build your own. I think there's one as well. I think it's subscription expired as well, which looks pretty good because it's got the Microsoft logo in there. It's got, you know, maybe it's the license that they have that they recognize. Like, oh my God, it's not working. So maybe I need to go here and sign in and sort some stuff out. And that's the ones that you really want to capture, because the education is really important, because I mean, I think I see this in every security session that we run, but it's all about ensuring that the organization knows how to recognize a phishing email, because it is the kind of most common way of attack across organizations. So really key that we start educating users like that. So let me select that one. And then we'll go next. So you can target this to the whole organization. You can target to specific users or groups. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it as include all users in my organization. You'll see there that it's not very big, but we've got them there. And then we'll go next. So we've got our training aspect here, and this is something that's recently changed with the attack simulator. But you can assign training, or you can let Microsoft assign training depending on the attack that you've launched. So if they are, if they've been susceptible to the attack, so they've clicked on the link, they've popped in their credentials, yeah. Then Microsoft at the end or during, you know, when they fail, will send some training to that user to educate them about how to manage or how to kind of view or to be able to tell when they've been, you know, susceptible to a phishing attack. And it really does help, because it's all about the education, which is the real important part here. And it's one of the things that I think is really a great point for the attack simulator, is the ability to drive that automated across the organization. You can also select training courses and modules yourself, so that allows you to select from a pre-canned list of training material to let people to kind of, well, I suppose to target what you're saying to the end users and how you want to educate them. I don't know if anyone heard that, but I snorted. That's not good. Anyway. So next, yeah, and it's all about, you know, getting that to the end users to get them up to speed with how to recognise and how to avoid being susceptible to it. You'll see here that we've got a due date as well, so we can send it out 30 days after the simulation ends, 7 days after the simulation ends, or 15 days after the simulation ends. So we've got some options. Coming soon to this as well is the ability to add in your own training. So you'll be able to direct them to intranets, SharePoint pages, whatever you have internally that you want to share with them to educate them. So lots of really kind of good, exciting stuff there. And then you've got end user notifications as well, so we can use a default landing page. So what this is if they do fall can target to this, then they'll be directed to a page where they're told that they've failed. They've failed in general, and kind of maybe in there we've got some training content or more kind of business focused content we want to share. We can customize that landing page as well to make it more on brand. So lots of kind of things that we can do around that. And then we can go into our launch details. In fact, let's don't deliver for the moment. And then in our launch details there, we can launch the attack immediately or the simulation immediately, or we can schedule it to be kind of launched later on. And then once you've kind of launched that attack, you've got full view of the current state of that, down to the users that are failing. Yeah, they are clicking the link but not giving their details. They've done both. They haven't done anything. They've ignored it. Lots of really good information in there, and it's all about using that information, educating your organisation, and then launching further attacks to then target the ones that have had the education, to ensure that you've closed that gap across the organisation. So brilliant way of managing that across the estate. Cool. So I wanted to show you that, and then I talk about this again quite regularly over our sessions, and that's Defender for Cloud Apps. Such a great tool. Let's step into it just now. Even with E3 licenses, you have the discovery element of this, so you can discover what cloud apps are being utilised in your estate. Also gives you access to your cloud app catalogue, which is now up to 30,473 cloud apps. And each of these apps have been assessed by Microsoft. And I'll show you one of the assessments here. If we choose one of the common ones like Microsoft Teams, you'll see that it looks at the general information for the application itself. So what domains does it use? What services does it use? When was the corporation founded? Where is data located? But then it breaks down into security and compliance more specifically. So does it have MFA? Does it have Safe Haven? Does it have SOC 3? Does it have GAP? Does it have ISO? All of these things are assessed and reported back around these 30,000 applications, and each of these areas is given a score, which you have 10 here because obviously it's a Microsoft app, but all of the third-party apps that you're utilizing out there, it could be that they're using a secondary service. Great way of coming in and kind of viewing that information and giving you some real kind of insights into that. So any app that you're looking to, even the Teams app, kind of variation of it, you can look to see how it's scored here, if it's had any breaches recently, and then kind of base your decision a lot on the information that you're seeing across this dashboard. So great to use it just for that, but then also understand what cloud apps are currently out there. What we can also do is kind of connect up our Office 365 and our Azure, so we've got our users and all of our services connected in there. So we can use the Defender for Cloud Apps to start understanding what people are doing within the cloud apps we have out there across the estate. Yeah. Additional licensing and all that kind of good stuff gives you other things like the ability to include anomalous behavior alerting, general file and auditing and activity kind of alerts as well. Great stuff out the box, but you have the ability to create really organization specific alerts here as well. Integrates well with Defender for Office 365, Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint. They all integrate really beautifully together, so you have all of these alerts sharing across the kind of platform. So it's all about this Defender coming into this one umbrella application that you can view everything across it. So it's really good. But one thing I want just to quickly demonstrate before I hand over to Stuart shortly is one of the great things that I think about the full Defender for Cloud Apps version, and that is conditional access app control. So what that is it's session-based policies driven by conditional access that you can apply particular session controls. So one of the ones I'll show you today is the ability to block downloads. So I can block downloads from Teams, or I can block downloads from the entire M365 service for guests or external users, or a subset of our own users. So lots of really kind of powerful stuff that you can do there. And it all starts within conditional access. So let me show you just creating a baseline policy to open up that functionality. So if I create a new policy, and then we will target that at all guests and external users. What we tend to do here is exclude our break glass accounts, just as a belt and braces approach. It won't be affected by the policy, but it's always best practice to have a break glass account that's exempt, has a very long password auto-generated, and it's stored in a safe or stored in a really kind of secure and encrypted location. Yeah, so break glass accounts, really important, talk about it all the time. So definitely, if you don't have one, start thinking about one now. So yeah, so I've applied that to all of my guests and external users. I'm just going to do all my cloud apps specifically. I could just do Teams here if I wanted, but I'm going to do all of my cloud apps. Our conditions, so I'm going to specifically say that our client apps are all client apps. Yep, so that could be browser, that could be mobile apps, or the client apps. It could also be legacy authentication clients like Exchange ActiveSync, etc. So just ruling everything in is part of that. And then we're going to ignore our grant controls here, and we're going to look particularly at our session controls. So if we were going to do a block, you'll see here we've got use conditional access app control. So if we were going to do a block, then we would simply block downloads as part of the policy here. But what we can also do is use a custom policy, which I'll step through just quickly in a second. But if I was using block downloads, I would just enable that as block downloads, select it, and then turn my policy on and then create it. So what that's doing is that for all users that are external or guests, it's going to enable the session control policies within Defender for Cloud Apps. And then if we jump back to Defender for Cloud Apps, and then in our connected apps here under Investigate, you'll see I've already connected Office 365 and Microsoft Azure in here, which is pretty simple to do. But you have this extra tab here, which is Conditional Access App Control. So the next time that someone accesses the apps that are controlled by that conditional access policy, it will then begin to appear here. So you'll see Microsoft Teams, you'll see Microsoft Exchange, and all that kind of stuff filtering through here as soon as someone accesses that within the organization. And because we have our block downloads enabled within our conditional access policy, it's going to immediately block downloads out of the starting gate. Yeah. So what will happen in the Teams client is if a guest or an external user tries to download something within a team that they're a member of, then it will fail and it'll come up with a message that says this action is blocked. Yeah. Works really well across web, across web, the browser. That's a bit silly, but browser, client apps, you know, across everything. So, you know, you've got full kind of control of how people can get information out of your applications just by enabling that session control. But what you can also do is create another conditional access policy, but this time for custom. Use a custom policy, yeah. And then what that enables you to do then is to create a session policy. So if I jump into policies here, create a policy, and then I've got a session policy here. So what I can do is, because I don't have any apps, it's complaining there, but you know, if your apps have been accessed since you've deployed your first policy, then that will be green, it won't pop up. So you'll be able to use this for all of your cloud apps. I can give my policy a name and all that kind of good stuff, but then I can, you know, do specific actions around this session. So whether that is, you know, blocking a particular action within Outlook, or blocking, you know, downloads, you can still do that from here. Blocking moving of data across the different locations. Lots of really powerful stuff that's kind of really easy to configure, but gives you real kind of control over how people are getting information out of your estate. And if you have the licenses to use it, you know, I definitely recommend that you implement it as a baseline for people internal, people external, so guests and external users. But other than that, you can focus directly on internal. But hopefully that's been informative. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass over to my colleague Stuart, who will share his screen, and we'll talk about some of the things in Azure that can really kind of help us out there. So thanks for listening, really appreciate that.
Cheers for that, Dave. Some really good things there. That tax simulates such a killer function now for just ensuring that your users are compliant and obviously engaged with security. Right, if you just bear with me a second, I'm going to share my screen. So there we go. So I'm just going to be looking at how Azure and essentially Microsoft Defender for Cloud works. For those of you who obviously are used to using Azure, that you've used to Azure Security Center and maybe have used Azure Defender, these have been now kind of combined to Microsoft Defender for Cloud as of January this year, and it's a great platform. It continuously assesses your platform, so checks your security posture constantly and tracks any vulnerabilities in your state. Obviously hardens resources, so it uses various security benchmarks to do this, and stuff like just-in-time VM access, and even adaptive application and network hardening, and it constantly will recommend security recommendations. And the defense thing is really, really good. So obviously Defender, which Dave's talked about, there's server implementations of that. The security alerting, it integrates brilliantly into Azure Sentinel, but other SIEM platforms. So obviously it will detect and resolve ongoing threats to your environment. Another great thing about it is its platform isn't just Azure, it will work in AWS, and you can onboard even Google Cloud machines onto it now. So drilling into subscriptions, this is my test subscription. Again, so I've got 3 VMs, some SQL Service databases and some storage accounts. Again, it's not just a VM solution, it will do PaaS platforms within Azure. So I'm a great lover of Azure SQL, and I think anybody who uses Azure will use storage accounts. It protects them as well. So the basic security, which you're probably all used to as part of Advisor, is it will sit and just identify best practice. So machines should have a vulnerability assessment solution. Backup should be switched on, as you can see here. Just standards like that. If you're accessing storage accounts, use a private link if possible, so that data isn't being accessed from outside of either the Azure VNet or outside the subscription. All pretty normal things. This is, I say, just a test subscription. So obviously within that, you have the Microsoft Defender for Cloud bolt-on, which is like upping your 365 subscription. It's an additional bolt-on for your resources. You don't have to enable it for everything. And it takes you to quite a familiar looking panel. So this looks quite some of the stuff Dave's been demoing. So in here, I'm just looking at one subscription with 22 resources. I've got 11 active recommendations and I've got 50 security alerts. Now, because obviously I don't want to sit there and attack my own resources, I've done some auto-generated alerts to show you the kind of things that it looks at. It's saying here that I've got 9 unhealthy resources. As you see here, Azure is the issue here, but I don't have any AWS or Google Cloud plugged in, but obviously it can monitor them as well. And some good things like there, like the Firewall Manager, I haven't deployed that just because it's such an expensive resource to run. But from there, I can obviously drill into the security alerts, and it gives us a fairly familiar but enhanced look if anybody's used the old Azure Security Center. And these are all but one are test alerts. So in here, I've got some web app alerts. So the web app platform in Azure is absolutely brilliant. You know, it's serverless web platforms, or you can run .NET applications in it. Lots and lots of people use it. It's a great platform, but one of the things that used to keep me awake at night when I was managing large amounts of web apps to clients and internally was if something got hijacked, how do I even know? So there's an example here that phishing content hosted on one of my web apps, which means that I am compromised somehow. And the simulated attack here is that there's a phishing attack sent to 365 customers. It tells me which app it is, which subscriptions are in, what kind of attack. It's a collection tactic there. And obviously, if I click into any of these alerts here, it will show me information. Obviously, this one's a sample alert. Again, alert details, the URL, and what I need to do to take action. Yeah, you can plug it into to a Logic app to obviously deal with it. Obviously, I haven't followed security recommendations in this one, so obviously that's a good place to start. And obviously, I haven't configured email alerts because obviously this is a test tenant. But there's all the things we can do as part of this alert. So obviously that's a PaaS platform. There's a database attack here, which is obviously a brute force attack. Again, this is a different kind of attack tactic. This is a pre-attack. So obviously somebody's tried to hit a SQL database with credentials, just to brute force in. Obviously, there's several issues here. That one, it's open to the internet, and secondly, it's accepting IP addresses from outside an ACL. But it's easy things to miss. Really good at detecting, and obviously that again is a PaaS platform. You're just buying a database wrapped up without the OS layer. So it's good to know that obviously you can generate these kind of alerts. You've got all the standard stuff. Now I have actually had this happen in real life, where this one here this is again another simulated attack that a VM has been compromised by somebody putting crypto mining software on it, and I have had this happen myself in my work. Obviously, it's a hard one to detect sometimes. Again, it lets you know what's happening, which IP address, time, date stamps, and the whole lot. So as you see, there's various different kinds of alerts that it's tracking there. Quite uses normal sort of classifications on it, and even stuff like containers it can scan. There's even key vault options there as well. If anybody uses a key vault, it's a great way of storing your credentials. But obviously, sometimes there's a lot of requests to it that would be out of the norm. So it will alert on things like that. This center has a nice sort of active real-time dashboard as well. So if you wanted to put it in your NOC or something like that, you've got a view. Just typically my internet connection is running slow when I try and refresh this alert. But it will get there. But interestingly, when I was actually just drilling through the alerts this morning, I noticed there was I have a real VM in there, and a dodgy IP address has tried to log onto my machine. And again, I threw some VMs up without an ACL just to install the app on it and try and see. And this one has had one, and it's an IP address based on a lookup that is in Germany. And it's given me a whole bunch of things what to do here. I can create a rule to obviously mitigate the threat. I can reduce my attack surface by carrying out some active security recommendations on this VM, which again is adaptive network hardening. So obviously put an ACL in place. Obviously, standard security best practice, encrypt your disks and data flows between this VM and anything else that interfaces with Azure, and pop on the log analytics agent, which obviously lets me gather some really good metrics. There's a whole bunch of other recommendations there. Obviously, I can again trigger an automated response. I could stress alerts if I'm feeling really silly, and obviously the email alerting one. So there's straight into there, and there's the adaptive ones. If I click here, it will actually run a Logic app to nail this down, and it gives you a nice what it's going to do this. So it's doing this in real time, monitoring my resources and protecting me from any nasties. And that's the active alerts one there. So if I scroll down here, here's my top 5 attack resources. So again, these are predominantly the attack samples I've used for this demonstration, and obviously what kind of attacks they are. So obviously all the different kinds of ones there. Initial access, and you've got the pre-attacks and everything else. And you've got all this can be pulled into things like Sentinel though, and integrated into alerts, integrated to help desk, text messages, you name it. It's all there to actually notify you of what's happening. And thankfully, almost all of these, bar that traffic detected from an IP address, is a sample alert in my subscription. So yeah, it really builds on what the basic sort of security checks it does, with some real-time, continually assessment of your environment. As I say, it's such a godsend when you actually start deploying large amounts of resources into Azure. Another nice one is as well, it will track your regulatory compliance. So for you, those of you who work in regulated industries, you've obviously got specific sort of standards to meet. It tracks them in real time. Obviously, I haven't set any regulatory compliance, so this is just a baseline one. But obviously, it'll track all the different kinds of sort of things you want to tick to actually meet your compliance. Obviously, if you want to define these for your own industry, it will track them. But obviously, this is the baseline one. And there's so many things that sits there and just checks. And obviously, when it gets to your auditing, ISO 27001, this kind of thing is really, really handy just to make sure that you're compliant. So it's very handy, and obviously you can just manage the policies that you're applying to your subscription there, and it'll run you out quite a nice report as well. So yeah, so I think that's just basically where we are with Defender. As I say, it's been renamed now. It's now part of the standard naming convention, most of the new Microsoft security products, and it's a great addition to your security arsenal, especially if you're running lots of Azure resources. So if I just want to hand now back to ask for Q&A. Stop
Sure.
that.
Well, thanks very much, Dave and Stu. That's fantastic, really detailed and useful information. I think we'll all agree. So we've had a few questions come in. One which I think is hopefully quite a simple one. How do you navigate to MS Defender for cloud apps? How do you actually get there?
So you can navigate there through the Defender Center. So by more resources at the bottom left. In fact, I should probably, no, in fact, I won't show you, but you can do it via going the Defender Center down the bottom, more actions, and then in there you've got Defender for Cloud Apps, or it's still going through its naming change. You can go to portal.cloudappsecurity.com, and that will take you to your Defender for Cloud Apps. Just one question to ask: Did you hear me snorting?
I did hear you snorting, but it's all right. I think
embarrassing. Embarrassing. Yeah.
Okay, another question that's not snorting related. Sophie asks, when it comes to the zero trust model, you mentioned that it's a roadmap. How quickly should we be aiming to get it to full conformity?
That is a great question to ask, because that's an important factor. The roadmap is a roadmap. Yep, you define your own timescales to get to that. Can be a 12-month roadmap, could be a 5-year roadmap. My only recommendation, or our only recommendation, is that you start moving towards it as kind of agilely as possible. So start implementing an IAM solution, start implementing MFA and conditional access and all these things that you have at your disposal out of the box. Because it's going to get you towards, it's this good, better, best methodology. So it's all about moving from good all across to better and then best by implementing these solutions at key junctures. But it can be as slow and arduous as you need it to be. But the recommendation is always to move there as swiftly as you're able to. But I know that all organizations aren't agile, but it's totally organization specific. And as I've said throughout the session, we can help you with that. We love talking about this stuff. Hopefully you can tell that we're passionate about the technologies, so definitely reach out.
So another question for Stu. We're a business with 400 Microsoft 365 seats. How much would Defender for Cloud cost? And does it integrate into security information and event management platforms?
Obviously, Defender for Cloud is only applicable if they're running Azure resources. If they want to get all the goodies that Dave wants for the 365 people, that's obviously a licensing question more for Dave. As far as integration to SIEM, yes, it's natively integrated with Sentinel, which is Microsoft's offering, which is a fantastic security suite. It gives you some really good analysis on top of this. But it does go into like the Fujitsu one and a whole bunch of other security centers. So it's not forcing down the Microsoft route. It does integrate with other offerings. Dave, I don't know if you want to answer the licensing bit as per.
So what was the licensing question again to us?
It's how much would Defender for Cloud cost?
Well, it's 400 users, was it, for 365 users? Well, obviously Defender for Cloud's a
right. Okay. Well, I mean, it's kind of an odd question when it comes to Defender, because Defender, a lot of the functionality is included in E3 capabilities. We've got some Plan 1 capabilities in there, but then a lot of the more advanced function then comes with bolt-ons or potentially additional licensing costs. The things like behavioral analytics with Defender for Identity and Defender for Endpoint. Then the key thing to understand here is it's a suite of products, and they all do very targeted and specific things. So they've all got their own variations in licensing. But one of the key messages from this, though, is that we are experts when it comes to licensing, and that sounds really vain when I say that, but we are. We can help you ascertain what you currently have, so what capabilities are open to you, but then try and model that in a way where you have access to a lot of these really powerful tools with the most cost-effective way possible as well. So I'm not sure about Defender for Cloud though. Is that a license model or is that subscription?
It's a per user, it was per server or per
server.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, if you had a couple of internet-facing servers, it's about £10 per server per month. But obviously, it gives you all those goodies, all that real-time checks, and the really hardened security posture on it. So it's so important for resources like that. There's slightly different pricing. It's lower pricing things like web apps, but it is per sort of platform license. But yeah, the server's the big hook on that. It's about £10-11 per server per month. But you don't need to enable on all of them. If it's stuff that's properly exposed, then it's a really good idea to deal with them first and see how much value it brings.
Fantastic. So I think that's we've got another question. Will you be running another class on this? I'd love to attend again. Well, we will be running more webinars. This session, as I said at the start, is being recorded. So everyone who's attended today, we will be emailing out a link to the recording. So you'll be able to experience it as many times as you wish again. And I suppose that kind of brings me on to the last bit here, which is that if you have specific needs, well, as Dave's mentioned, we can help you there. So I'd just like to introduce our commercial director, Spencer, who's going to just let you know about some opportunities that we've got for you in that respect.
Yeah, thank you, Traz. And very just quickly to say thank you for everybody attending this morning and this afternoon session. Great turnout, so that's wonderful to see. I've personally I've enjoyed the human factors element of it this morning, talking through around the attack simulation, and how we can help effectively turn our users into human firewalls, helping organizations for the prevention rather than the cure. So found that really interesting, and how we can educate and help and support our users. Yeah, Traz is absolutely right. The fantastic speech from both speakers this morning, really informative. So Dave, Stuart, thank you guys, really good, well done. And I guess finally, what we want to do as an organisation is really just to help you on your journey with regards to your security, and with that in mind, with the opportunity to help you on a one-to-one basis. So myself and my team will be in contact with you directly, everybody that's turned up on the webinar today, really just to understand your security posture in a little bit more detail, and perhaps to see where we can engage you with subject matter experts internally within CompanyNet and help you secure that platform moving forward. So we will be in contact very, very shortly, giving you the opportunity to engage with us directly. So once again, thank you everybody for your time this morning. Really great turnout. Thanks again to the presenters, and we hope to see you very soon on the next one. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.